right, welcome into the latest edition of the second half draft show. I am your host, Juice, joined by Headley and Drew. You guys aren't in the right order, so let me get that situated. There we go. Got you guys in the right spots here. This is season 1.5. All right, for those of you who are familiar with the show, of course, season one came to an end with our coverage of the 2023 NFL draft and our draft grades. You'll still see some additional content on the 2023 class on the channel, but as far as the second half draft show is concerned, we're turning the page to the 2024 class, and of course, we're in and doing our summer scouting currently. So as you can see in the bottom right here, Olu Fashanu, Blake Corum, Michael Penix Jr. We're going to be talking about several prospects from each of their respective teams, including those individuals. But as I wrap up this brief housekeeping endeavor here, you might notice we now are partnered with Underdog Fantasy. So be sure to check out that link in the description. Use promo code CPGM for a doubling your deposit up to $100. So again, check out that link in the description and use promo code CPGM to take advantage of that offer. All right, gentlemen. With that out of the way, of course, we had a little bit of a hiatus. We got to recharge our batteries a bit. Now we turn our attention to 2024, right? And I mentioned several players at the top here, guys that we thought may actually enter the 2023 class. Ultimately, they didn't. Haile, I want to start with you in terms of your thought process regarding, and we didn't talk a lot about this during our pre-production meeting, but it is a conversation we've had leading up to this show regarding players opting to stay in school, right? With the advent of NIL, obviously Blake Corum coming off the injury. What's your thought process? Do you anticipate seeing more players remain in school for all 4 years, or maybe an additional fifth year, depending on their redshirt status?
Yeah, I think we're going to see, more of that, with the NIL money. Some guys think, get some money at college before they get to the league. No guarantee where you're going to be drafted in the league, especially a running back like a Blake Corum. I know he had some injury issues as well, but running backs get drafted later on in drafts. It's a devaluation. So if you could stay in school, you're a big time running back, get that NIL money before you enter the league, man. It makes a lot of sense for that position. For Fashanu, I think he just wanted to get his education, man. He's one of those guys. He's probably the parents, man. It's like, no, you're staying in school. I don't care your first round pick. You got next year to do that. So, Fashanu kind of surprised me a bit. He was ready. I had him like offensive tackle 1 or 2. It was him and Paris Johnson at the top of the tackle board, and he decided to stay in school. And then Michael Penix, just seeing more film with him, man. A lot of injuries with him as well. So just getting more film with him. You're going to be competing with Drake May and Caleb Williams in this draft class. So it's quarterback for me last year. He might be quarterback 3 for me this year also. I don't really think he's moving up too far up the board, but his talent, we're going to talk about him a little bit, but his talent is exceptional.
Yeah, Drew, that's where I want to start. I want to start with the Washington Huskies. They have a lot of talent coming in, and of course, Michael Penix Jr. And your thoughts on the lefty quarterback. Obviously, he transferred from Indiana. And, there was a lot of conversation around his transfer and his decision-making, right? And it was less about, the college experience per se, or, he wanted to know about, the system. He wanted to know about what his weapons were going to be, because there was a thought process here. I want to really be able to demonstrate what I can do. I understand that I need a quality supporting cast. So ultimately, he lands in Washington. We're going to touch on some of the receivers that he has there, but I want to focus on Michael Penix Jr. As Headley mentioned, it's his QB3 going into last year's class had he entered, and of course his QB3 currently in the 2024 class, the prospective 2024 class. What do you think about Michael Penix Jr., Drew?
Well, first of all, I gotta give him his props, man. He's from Tampa. And saying his high school was let me make sure I get it right. It was Tampa Bay Tech, if I'm not mistaken. Tampa Bay Tech High School. So he's a Tampa product. His dad actually wanted him to go to USF, I think, when he was thinking about transferring. So, go Bulls. Just want to throw that out there. Got to do that. But yeah, man, he was looking for an opportunity, and he went west, man. He went way west, way left. And I think he had an outstanding season last year. Like we talked about, he was one of the players, and I think, like you said, Juice, all these players we're going to talk about are guys who we thought had an opportunity to come out and be at the top of the draft somewhere, at least in the first round, right? And listen, That arm, as far as I'm concerned, he has the strongest arm in this upcoming season, college football season. And I'm trying to come up with some I don't know what to call it, little phrases that I have for each player. Excerpts, is that what you call them? I don't know what you call them. Paraphrase. I don't know what you call it, but I have
excerpts works.
Excerpts. Okay, Geno Smith 2.0 is what I have.
Who you said?
Geno Smith 2.0.
Okay. Big Geno. Gotcha.
I mean, Geno has a ton of arm talent. That was Geno's calling card, right? And I think that's what Drew is ultimately, that's where he sees the parallels as far as the ability to spin it. You know what I mean? One being a righty, one being a lefty, but certainly those guys can throw the football. That was never a question mark with Geno. And watching Penix Jr. in Washington this past season, Pac-12, there was some good quarterback play, right? Bo Nix surprised me quite a bit. Drew's giving me a hard time about how I was down pressing Bo Nix at Auburn, but it wasn't good. It just simply wasn't good. I didn't expect that type of leap. I figured, with more competent coaching and supporting cast, he certainly could be better, but he looked really good. And by all reports, he would have been a mid-round pick in this particular class, 2023. So we'll see how he does in terms of trying to climb up the board, maybe slide into that QB3 spot, right? Currently held by Penix Jr. I think we all are in agreement that he's currently QB3 in this 2024 class. But yeah, man, Michael Penix Jr. has a hose, and some of those opposite hash throws on the deep outs, those timing. I mean, those are long throws, right? The hashes are wider in college football. You know what I mean? So really impressive stuff. What about you, Heather? When you watch Penix Jr., any other players come to mind when you see him? What do you think about his skill set?
Yeah, man. I call him the strong arm Tua. I know it's a lazy comp because it's a lefty on lefty, but how he operates in the pocket is also Tua like. But they're both lefty, but that arm talent, like you said, the opposite hash lasers. It's just crazy to watch him, man. Time after time do it. He could escape. I think he escapes a little bit better than Tua, but he likes pocket. He likes to hit his receivers. He throws a beautiful deep ball with touch. So. It's the injury concerns, but this Washington football Huskies team, I think he had 3 good receivers on his team. We're going to talk about those guys. Rome, I know Jake's big on Rome. You got McMillan, and then also Polk, man, number 2. So he gets beat deep. So yeah, I like Penix a lot, man. But yeah, it's the arm talent, man. It's the arm talent. He gets it out quickly. He's like a rhythm quarterback. Sometimes he does kind of force passes. With these strong arm quarterbacks, sometimes they can make every throw. He does make a lot of completions in tight windows, but sometimes he'll force it in there and throw an interception. But, other than that, man, he looks really good in the pocket. I like him going from read to read. It's a much different quarterback from Indiana. I know the system is a big reason why he's improved. But when you watched him in Indiana, you didn't see what you saw last year for the Huskies.
And I'll say this too. With some of my notes I got here, obviously he's a lefty, strongest arm in the class as far as I'm concerned. Somebody's going to have to challenge him for that. Headley talked about in terms of his pocket awareness is efficient and timely. I saw a stat. I forget who they were playing, but they put the stat up, and it was something to the effect of they have the most. I think they have the most plays that it takes to score in terms of efficiency, getting the ball down the field, making no mistakes in the country. And so to me, that tells me that them boy's efficient. That tells me that he knows what he's looking at when he's getting the ball down the field. It tells me that he doesn't make mistakes. Tell me that he has a command of the offense. Most teams want to score quickly. You know what I'm saying? Nah, we good. We'll take it down the field, dink it, dunk it. And we'll take as many plays as we can to get the ball down the field, man. So it sounds like he has a good command of that offense. And, it's going to be challenging. I think it's going to be a little bit more challenging this year because they got some offensive linemen that they have to replace. But they got the weapons, man. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what this team does, this year. Because that Pac-12, it's real. It's coming and it's real.
It's coming, yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point as far as the patience, and Headley mentioned it. When you have a strong arm like that, there are going to be times where you try to get away with certain things. Yep. You understand what I'm saying? And of course, the great quarterbacks are able to judge when it's appropriate to go for the jugular and when to kind of, take something off of it or don't even make that throw necessarily, right? Get to that next read within the progression. But that willingness to matriculate the football down the field, as opposed to, always looking for the home run, because there are a ton of big plays in that offense. We're going to touch on the receivers on this team as well. You know what I mean? There's a lot of talent around him. And certainly in 2023, there was no shortage of chunk plays in this offense. But even with that success, to not necessarily fall in love with it and understand when to, we just need a new set of downs. You understand what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Throw to the guy who's open. You know what I mean? I get it. Touchdown to first down. Absolutely. But when that touchdown isn't there, make sure you get the first down. So I like what I saw from Penn Jr. Again, very different offense. And I think he was cognizant of that. That was the catalyst for the transfer and why he landed in Washington, why he chose Washington ultimately. And that, to me, that awareness, that understanding is significant as well. It may seem very, commonplace, you know what I'm saying, practical from our perspective, but young folks, young people don't always think that way. You know what I'm saying? Right. You know what I mean? So I really do appreciate the transfer itself, and then how he obviously acquitted himself in Washington. Shout out to Jake. Jake obviously plugged in. Roma Dunes, the receiver there, he's going to be part of the conversation in terms of this upcoming receiver class quite a bit. Pac-12 after dark, clearly always a lot of fun. I used to tell y'all all the time, I'd be up all kind of hours of the night, because we're on the East Coast, we're Eastern Standard Time, all kind of hours of the night on Saturday going into Sunday morning, watching Pac-12 football, you know what I mean? Because it was always entertaining. It may not always be great football, but it was always entertaining. So certainly going to be must-watch TV in 2023. D-Kit, what's happening, man? Good seeing you, bro. Let's talk about the other side of the football. We got a couple players here in Washington on the other side of the ball. Braylon Trice and Zion, and I'm gonna butcher his name. We were just working on the pronunciation.
I got you, bro. Zion Tupola. Tupola. Got it.
Tupola.
ZTF.
Yeah, ZTF. Yeah. Zion Tupola. But before we get there, let's go to Braylon Trice. And what do you think of the edge out of Washington? Washington generally has quality defensive players, and 2024 won't be any different. 2023, obviously, from the season, but of course, we're talking about the 2024 class here. I'll start with you, Drew. Your thoughts on Braylon Trice?
Yeah, you can't miss him. When I was watching Washington defense last year, I wasn't even looking at a Braylon Trice. Didn't even know who Braylon Trice was. I was looking for ZTF. And number 8, you can't miss him, man. He's consistent, man, in terms of the pressure that he's applying, in terms of the plan that he's activating. You can't miss that guy. And I think one of the things, watching him is that he keeps those offensive linemen on their toes, man. With his variation in terms of his pass rush, in terms of his hands. One of the issues I had with him watching, I want to see the improvement here. I want to see the improvement. How much he weigh? Let me see. 257, 6'4". He's probably like 250. We'll take off 7 pounds. You know how they do it.
It says 267, but
267.
Yeah.
He's big. He's big.
No, he is big, but you know how they do it. You know how they do it. I always got to add a couple pounds, but even if he ain't that big, he looks that big, right? He looks the part for sure. But that may be going around blocks, bro. I need to see him go through some guys. I need him to take on some guys, handle some blocks, be able to set the edge more consistently. Maybe Headley feels different, but in terms of being a pure pass rusher, I love him. And I think he's going to be a guy to watch. And I'm surprised he didn't come out this year. But, NIL keeps guys in school. So, I get it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I saw, the game against UCLA against DTR. He in key moments in the fourth quarter, he couldn't contain that edge. He made DTR get around him and get in space, get first down. So that's something he does got to work on. But he got violent hands. I need to be a little more consistent, but when it's there, man, really violent hands, speed to strength. Just a lot to deal with play after play. He could go around you, he could go through you. He's physical. Yeah, man. Braylon Trice, number 8, man. Like Drew said, he's hard to miss. He's skilled enough to go back in coverage also. So, just breaking down and staying in position, especially when you're playing against a mobile quarterback. zone reads, the options outside wide. He just got to stay home a little better, that edge a little better. He can't always fall for the cheese. So, that's the one thing I think he needs to improve upon. But, man, he keeps coming. He keeps coming play after play, 4 quarters. And he's the more power physical guy over ZTF.
Yeah, I would agree. ZTF is a little bit different. ZTF, and let me pull it up, make sure I don't butcher it here. He is gonna be a 6-year senior, man. So that's probably his biggest. There's two concerns for me for him. One is that injury history, and then 2 would be that he seems to be the guy that they sub out a lot. Every time
they rotated both of them. They rotated both of them a lot.
They do rotations, but ZTF seemed to be the guy that's always kind of like, all right, man, you need to play a little bit more. Maybe this year he will, because I think they had, I forget who they had last year, who I think entered the draft this past season. So I'm assuming he's going to play more, but we'll see how that plays out. But his 2020 season, bro, he was on pace for some crazy sack record, bro. I mean, he had 7 sacks in, I think, like 3 games. It was something stupid, man. And then he got injured, right? And then he came back 2021 season. I think it was his Achilles, if I'm not mistaken, came back. I think he came back. And matter of fact, let me think. Yeah, he came back and then he got injured again. And then he ended up playing, I think, in, what is it? It says 8 games here. He ended up, no, is it 8 games?
2022.
Yeah, no, in 2021, he came back. I think he played 1 or 2 games towards the end of the season. He got himself a sack. He actually looked good in the game. I think it was against Arizona State. I get the boys mixed up. And then in 2022, obviously still coming off of the injury, still kind of working himself in. It'll just be interesting to see what he looks like. But that ability to them quick hands, man, them late hands, like that's something you really don't want to see on defensive linemen, late hands. But it's like a spider, man. You ever see a spider snatch up a fly or snatch up an ant or something crossing, just walking by, bro? And it's so quick, you blink and it's gone. It's a wrap, right? And I think he has that. I call it quicks to power is what he has. I think he's outstanding in terms of the edge, defending the edge, willing to take on 2-3 guys, whatever it takes to to defend the edge, and then they get cute. He'll drop back into coverage. I think they more or less like him to do that with him more than Braylon Trice, but he's not bad at it. So it'll be interesting to see. I just want to see him play more, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Whatever it is that they're gonna do with him, I just want to see him play more because I think he's a guy, man. It's just unfortunate he got injured, and I'm a little disappointed, but it happens.
Yeah, like you said, he was kind of the guy, and then Braylon Trice kind of took over that last season.
Yep.
But ZTF has a small sample size of production. The game against Utah, man, he dominated that game in 2020, like Drew said earlier. I like how he uses his hands. He extends it. He disengages from the offensive tackle, sets a good edge due to his length and ability. But what I really like about him, and I've seen it a lot last season, was his agility. It really stands out. He could come around the edge. He could stunt from the outside, come inside. It's just effortless with him. Always in phase, always under control. And it's one of those players, we've seen a couple guys before. I don't want to mention them, but you're always on the ball of your feet. When you're always on the ball of your feet and you had the agility to stop, start, and do a lot of things like that, man. He's really good against the run because of that. And, I like him. I like him also. I think I have Trice a little bit over him. But right. ZTF, his agility, man, that's what really stands out to me.
I think too. Also, you just reminded me is he's got to finish a little bit more, because he's the type of guy who will get up in the backfield, maybe force someone a place they don't want to go, and he may not necessarily make the play, but I want to see him get those numbers. I want to see that production from him that he had in the 2020 season. So that is kind of what I'm looking for him to play more, 1, and 2. For more production, and those things probably can, if you get more production, he might finish more. So if he plays more, he might get more production. So we'll see how that goes. And another guy.
Wait. I just want to lay this out. What we have here on screen is basically the rankings from NFL Draft Buzz, right? They have a nice the layout here as far as their rankings associated with the players. Our rankings will be coming out a bit later. There's obviously a lot more film to watch, but A couple of the other players that I wanted to mention, and Drew may be actually getting into those individuals. We have Rome Odunze, the receiver. That again, his hype, and Jake, alluded to it earlier. It's going to be crazy. Obviously you have Jalen McMillan, his running mate as well. All right, so there's quite a bit of talent here in Washington to keep your eye on, and I think assuming they can keep Michael Penix upright, it's going to be another big year. It's going to be another big year, and of course, if Washington's playing with Leeds, then Braylon Trice, Zion, ZTF, they're going to have an opportunity to hunt the quarterback, right? And of course, that's the name of the game at the next level, is being able to play the run on the way to the quarterback. So a lot of talent here in Washington. Go ahead, Drew.
There was another guy on defense that transferred over from Oklahoma State who I was watching last year, and his name is Jabbar Muhammad. He's going to be number 1 for them. And, I was just reading back in my notes, caught some of my notes. And for him, man, he's a guy who attacks the football, whether it be short, intermediate, or long. He locates the football, has no problem turning and running and locating the football. So that might be a guy that we might be watching as well. I don't know if he's mentioned in what you just pulled up there, but that's a guy to watch as well. And he's a senior, so he might be at the Senior Bowl as well.
DK, we're going to work through as many as we can throughout the summer, right? Obviously, we're still working on the format of season 2 of the second half draft show, but for 1.5, we obviously started with guys that we were studying for 2023, guys that were draft eligible for 2023. But as the summer progresses, we're going to get more into guys that are rising 2024 draft eligible players. So if you have any specific requests, we're typically going to cover about 3 teams throughout this process, this summer scouting, each show. But if you have any requests, be sure to let us know, and we'll prioritize those teams. All right. Yes. If I'm not mistaken, I believe you're right, D-Kid. And Bishop Gorman, they pump them out there, Vegas. All right. Let's transition to the Big Ten. So we got a pair of Big Ten teams here. And Olu Fashanu, right? A lot of conversation around him as to whether or not he was going to enter the draft, remain in college. He made it a decision relatively early. You know what I mean? I think he was well aware of what the NFL scouts thought of him, NFL teams, organizations thought of him. But as you mentioned, Headley, that there was a decision made, a familial decision made. Hey, let me play out my at least a little bit more of my eligibility. I'm a young man. I think he was 19 during this past season. So obviously he's gonna be a young player when he does enter the draft. Of course, there's the NIL factor as well. Many believe he was a top tackle. Headley, you said maybe 1, maybe 2. Paris Johnson ultimately was offensive tackle 1 for us in the class, 2023, that is. But Fashanu certainly, had he entered, was in the conversation at a minimum to be the top tackle. And we actually did a poll on our community post, so make sure that you subscribe to the channel. That's Couch Potato General Manager. And about, 59% of the voters felt that Fashanu would have been the top tackle in the 2023 class had he entered the draft over Paris Johnson. Of course, Paris Johnson got 41% of that vote. So Olu Fashanu, let's start there. And I want to start with you, Headley. Your thoughts on the offensive tackle out of Penn State?
Yeah, man. Big, powerful in the run game. He explodes out of the stance in the run or the pass game. He gets his landmarks quickly, uses technique and athleticism. If you want to think of a player that was just drafted, Broderick Jones kind of had the same similarities, but I think Fashanu was just more technically advanced, better skill set, better technique out of pass blocking. So, that's a guy and Icky from NC State, man, because when you see Icky get downhill and he destroys guys in the open field, you see Fashanu do that all the time. I see some shaky balance every now and then. Against JT Tuamala against Ohio State, man, he kind of whipped him with his hands a little bit, but man, this is a big man that can move, man. We always say, a guy this big shouldn't be moving this well, man. A lot of athleticism here for Olu Fashanu. Yeah, that's what I have on him, man. So, like I said, I had him at offensive tackle 2, but I thought he had a higher ceiling than Paris Johnson, man. He's like you said, he was just only 19 years old, and the sky's the limit for this guy. I expect him to be a top 5 pick in the 2024 draft if he declares.
Yeah, a guy that young with that size and that technique that he has is something to behold, man. I mean, his age alone may get him may have made him tackle one alone, right? So it's something, look at him and say we can mold this guy and do it very quickly. Headley kind of said it in terms of what he is, right? I have here is good at recovering and turning bad into good very quickly. So that's probably the first thing that I watched that I seen when I was watching him. Now I'm gonna be a little negative. Right? I'm gonna be a little negative, a little nitpicky, and I was watching him versus Auburn. I think this might be his worst game, to be honest with you. And it really didn't matter whether it was Derek Hall, whether it was Kobe Wooden, or what was it, Iku Leota. Yeah, it didn't really matter, man. I know Haley was talking about in terms of him being shaky in terms of that balance, bro. He's got some long arms, but I need a measure, man, in that Auburn game, because there were times where guys was able to get inside of him. That's crazy to me. Like, cause you got these long arms, you can't let people get inside of you. It's just it's strange, man. And they was working them. They was putting them to the test, man. And Leota specifically and Hall were doing some damage in terms of getting around him, getting through him, and causing havoc in that backfield, man. So that's a tape I would go back and watch. It wasn't often. Well, I would say in that game it actually was a little bit more than often. But yeah, that I guess everybody has a bad game, right, in college, a game or two, right? And that just may have been that game. But if you watch that tape, you might think twice about what you really think about him. But maybe a coach looks at that and says, "Man, we can fix that." That's an easy adjustment in terms of letting guys inside of you, because if you have the length that I think you look like you have in most games, that should never happen. But yeah, everything else about him, man, he's the real deal. And he, as far as I'm concerned, he can only get better, man. So,
yeah, the ceiling is crazy high. D-Kid mentioned that he was playing hurt in that Auburn game, so that may have
that's
may have contributed to his struggles in that particular matchup. And of course, Auburn has NFL caliber defenders. You know what I'm saying? So certainly, if you're not 100% on your A game, you know what I'm saying, those guys can get you up. So my thoughts on Olu, and I'm sure you guys have watched a little bit more tape than I have, but I drilled down into the matchup with Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. Was it a Michigan tape? I'm pretty sure it was a Michigan tape. At any rate, I agree. He moves very well at his size, 6'6", 320 plus. The arm length is there. There's no question that the arm length is there, but I agree with you, Drew. There's times where he's late with his punch, or he does a great job getting to his landmark. I mean it's amazing how quickly he gets out there. I mean, he could turn that wide 9 into a 5 technique real quick because of the way he gets to his landmark. But at times he's late with his hands, and if he's late with his hands, of course, the defender gets into his body, and that can create trouble, right? And typically, what I saw when he had his most struggles in that particular matchup, and there wasn't very many, he didn't lose very many reps at all, was when he overset. Again, he does such a great job of getting to his landmark. At times he'll overset, which makes him susceptible to an inside move. You know what I mean? Hadley, you talked about his balance. That is when I saw the balance issues. You know what I mean? I think he does a great job of blocking down. He just needs more refinement. That's all. And I'm not suggesting that he's incredibly raw, because once he gets his hands on you, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. He gets his punch out there soon enough. You're not going to beat him to his spot. So once his arms are out there and he gets his hands on you, it's pretty much done. But I do think there are times where his technique breaks down a little bit, and then that is when the opposition can take advantage of him. But yeah, the ceiling is sky high, and I agree. Certainly in play for a top 5 pick, assuming that he continues. Even if we don't see any market improvement from last year to this year, he's still going to be a very high pick, considering the need, obviously, along the offensive line and his skill set, as well as his age. So very high ceiling for Olu Fashanu. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball here with the Penn State Nittany Lions, and let's talk about Chop Robinson. What do you guys think about Chop Robinson? Let's start with you, Headley.
Yeah, first thing you notice when you watch Chop is that juice. He has that juice off the edge. Last year he played around 400 snaps. This year he's going to step into a bigger role. He plays through contact well, and his close ability to hunt. So he has that juice, that initial burst off the line of scrimmage, and then he hunts quarterbacks. opposite hash, running backs, opposite hash. He gets there really quickly. He showcases good hands at times. I think he has to be more consistent with his hands. He uses that chop move. No pun intended, but he does use that chop move often. He creates separation from the tackle. So I think that's the biggest thing with him, because when you watch tape against Dawan Jones, Dawan ate him up. He couldn't get around him. He couldn't get through him. So he just has to use his hands a little bit better to create separation, so he can use that burst and that closing ability. He's 250 pounds I have here. So I look at him more as an outside linebacker, dropping back into coverage sometimes. 3-4 outside linebacker than a natural DN. We'll see if he puts on some weight, because I think he needs to put on some more weight for that frame, get some more strength, get some more pass rushing moves. But he's at best when he can use his hands around the corner. And sometimes he's a bit upright. He's more linear. He's not really that bendy kind of guy like a boy from LSU. Yes, that guy.
Just that quick. Just that quick.
Henley
turned the page on 2023, boy. You forgot the name.
Yeah, man.
Gotta do it, bro.
And Will McDonald's another guy like that that's so bendy around the edge. He's not like that. He's kind of upright a little bit. So it's improving that bend, that strength. But he has a lot of room to grow also, man. We're going to see what he does this year in 2024. I have him right now end of first round type of guy. I don't have him in the top of the draft right now. I have him, maybe beginning of the second, end of the first. But like you said, a lot of tape more to watch, and we'll see how he develops in 2024.
Yeah, in terms of his accolades, he's coming from he initially was at Maryland, transferred over to Penn State, but he was named ESPN midseason true freshman All-American with Maryland. And then last year, he was named coaching staff's defensive player of the week 3 times versus Ohio, Maryland, and Utah. So the sky's the limit for him. I think his trajectory is going up, but obviously, like Hedley was saying, he's got some things that he's got to work on. It'll be interesting to see how they see him, whether it's at edge, whether it's at outside linebacker, or maybe it's in the middle there somewhere, right? And where in terms of how they use him, what that usage looks like. But I see a lot of things on Twitter about him too. So
I'm sorry. I saw a comment come through.
What did it say?
That's how D-Kid feels about
better
John
than nah. What you doing? Bro. What you saying? No. And I'm not talking about Micah right now. I'm talking about Micah when he was in school. It ain't
Yeah, he ain't Micah. Nah. He not that.
Nah, he don't have that.
Potential though. He has potential though. Like I said, man, I think he's a little upright,
right.
and strength. I think he can get some more weight. I think he's at 250 right now. Maybe gain like 15 extra pounds. And add some more pass rush repertoire. Look at that tape against Dawan Jones. He couldn't do nothing against him. He went on the other side against Paris Johnson. Paris locked him down there also. So I know those guys. Yeah. No,
I think D-Kid just causing chaos, man.
Okay.
Agent of chaos. I don't think he's serious. I don't think he's serious. I think he's pulling our leg on this.
Listen, somebody just left because they seen that saying, I'm out. Now we talking crazy.
My man, I love weed. Listen, it just wasn't this particular show. We're going to get there, though. We're going to get there. You know what I mean? We're going to knock out 2 Big Ten teams this week, next week, I'm sure. And then in the next couple of weeks here, we'll be talking Ohio State. Plenty of prospects there as well. So I clearly I'm going to take that as a request. So next Friday, we'll be talking about Ohio State and a couple other teams. So be sure to tune in then. All right. Chop Robinson. That takes us to Kalen King, cornerback for Penn State. Drew, and I'm gonna start with you, man. Your thoughts on the Nittany Lion corner?
Yeah, he played inside. He played outside. Mostly, he played on the boundary. Kalen King is outstanding in terms when the ball's in the air. He might be the best in the country at that in phase. No panic. You never want to see your corner or your defensive back panic when the ball's in the air. He locates the football. Easy hands. This is a guy who had 15 pass deflections. I don't know, Penn State. Them boys don't catch the football, I guess. I guess they don't. Can he catch, man? I know he can defend the ball and knock it down, right, with 15 pass deflections this past year, and he had 3 interceptions, and the interceptions look smooth, man. So, and he plays with controlled violence in terms of the run game, man. He's not coming up there, He's not trying to take somebody's head off necessarily. I'm just trying to make this tackle, and whatever that looks like, I'm gonna do that. And he's a guy who's you trying to block him, you're gonna have to fight for your life to block him, because he's not gonna stay blocked for long, man. So, and that's something, you know, obviously we can appreciate from the corner position. Not that every team asks for that, but you know what I'm saying? It's a guy who's gonna diagnose, come down and make the play, man. So, and we love that. Penn State plays a healthy. I love when teams play a healthy variation of zone and man, and they even get cute and kind of playing back in terms of almost as like a safety position, you know, so you kind of get a good look in terms of what that looks like in its entirety from him. I think he's better as a man corner, or at least you want him closer to the receiver than off the receiver, in my opinion. I want to see more in terms of what it looks like when he's off, that click and close. I don't necessarily see that in the pass game. I see that in the run game, as you're looking at right here. Matter of fact, the first play of when they played Ohio State, it was something not similar to this, because he wasn't off coverage. He was actually pressing the receiver and still made the play and kept everything inside. I'll pull that short and throw that up for you guys so you know what I'm talking about. But I think he's more of I want to be around the receiver versus playing off the receiver coming up. But you know, again, that's something I'll be looking for from him this next season. Has a good size. I think he's 5'11", 190, 185, something like that. So, and I want to see more of that production, man. Let's see what that looks like, and I want to see more of him inside. See what that looks like.
Yeah,
And you got it on the corner. Come on, talk.
I haven't seen enough, but the limited things that I did see is, you know, he's fluid. He's quick. He's fluid. You know, we saw a highlight there where he blew up the wide receiver. He just gets to the receiver on those screen passes. You know, Joey Porter is more the physical long corner, and I think King is more smaller, more fluid, more in your hip pocket type of corner. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see him, you know, going. He's going to be the guy this year. So, I think he get drafted higher than what Joey Porter got drafted last season because of his movement ability.
I would say this. I have his game is physical at the snap, and then I'm gonna slide in your hip pocket. Right, I'm just gonna stay near you, and I'm gonna try to make a play on the football.
You know, I thought DK brought up a good point that, you know, King got all the work because people didn't really want to test Joey Porter. You know what I mean? And of course, I maintain Joey Porter sliding out of the first round was a mistake. I think Christian Gonzalez and Joey Porter should have been selected higher. But what do you think about those two prospects? You mentioned, Adley, that you think Kalen King will go higher because of his movement ability. Of course, you know, there's been more balls thrown at him, so that, you know, from a film perspective, you get to see a little bit more of what he's capable of. But when we talk about projecting to the next level, why do you think he would be selected higher than Joey Porter Jr.?
You know, we talked about Joey Porter, man. He's not as sticky. You know, he'll give up space. He does have he comes in there and he breaks passes up, but you know, teams at the next level, I think they're looking for a guy that could be more sticky in coverage. He also has more versatility to me than a Joey Porter Jr. Can slide him inside, outside. So I think those two reasons why he'll go. I think he's a mid-first round pick. I don't have him higher than Christian Gonzalez. I don't think Christian Gonzalez was a mid-round pick. I thought he was a top 10 pick. So I think he goes in the same range, maybe 15 to 20. Right now, you know, on the board, a lot could change, man. We'll see how he progresses in 2024. But right now, I have him between 15 to 20.
So I'll say this: Porter has the size and the clothes, but King got that. Haley, what you say? Life's about movements. Mm-hmm. King got that movement. He got the movements, man. I'm trying to tell you, yeah, he's got it, bro. He's got it. I give it to him.
All right. Let's turn our attention to the last team that we're going to cover here in this episode of the Second Half Draft Show. We have the Michigan Wolverines. And I think we all thought, considering the workload, considering, you know, the fact that he had the backfield, not to himself, but he was a lead dog in the backfield. Blake Corum, we thought was going to enter the 2023 NFL draft and would be, you know, one of those mid-round picks, considering that he doesn't necessarily have the prototypical size that you're looking for. Although I think he's put together pretty well. He goes down with the injury. Of course, he misses the playoff game. Huge part of their offense. Of course, Donovan Edwards gets some run. He's going to be in consideration for this 2024 class. They got a couple pairs of backfields in the Big Ten between Michigan and their rivals, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yo,
As far as the duo in the backfield. So of course you have Corum and Edwards versus that of Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that next week. But Corum, before the injury, was the engine. I mean, JJ McCarthy obviously gave Michigan another element to their offense, what they've been missing pretty much throughout the duration of Harbaugh's tenure at Michigan. Got some legitimacy out of the quarterback position in terms of pushing the football down the field as well as making plays with his legs. So that certainly was a welcome sight, but Corum still was the linchpin to that offense. So, Drew, your thoughts on Blake Corum and his skill set and what it's going to look like at the next level for him?
Makes himself small and scarce. Runs with a low center of gravity. Might be the best back when it's all blocked up. Runs tight to his O lineman. You 5'8", 210, running tight, can't find you. Next thing you know, he's out the gate. Small feet can make people miss in tight spaces. Not easy to tackle due to that size. Can make you miss or run through you. Ain't nothing worse than a guy to make you miss and run through you, bro. Like you got to make a decision, right? And he's gonna make that decision, and it's gonna be hard. Arm tackles, not taking them down. Let me see here. He's a stick and mover, bro. He's just gonna stick. He's gonna stick and move. There's no, once he hits you with the stick, and then he's out. So you again, you got to make a decision as a defender, man. So it'll be interesting to see what it looks like in terms of that duo backfield. Especially to keep him healthy. And I think Michigan gonna be a problem this year, bro. That Big Ten gonna be something to work with. And then just in terms of what it looks like at the next level, I believe he can play in any system, man. To be honest with you, just because of his game and the way he plays the position at running back.
Yeah, that jump cut right
stick.
there. Ooh. Yeah,
Yes.
that jump cut, man. That's what stood out to me. That jump cut.
Definitely.
And he's a guy that once he puts his foot in the ground and he makes that decision and he cuts, man, you better watch out. He gains speed after his cuts. There's a lot of guys that can cut up, but they don't really have the acceleration after you cut. And Kerm has that. Look at it right there. He's just gonna yep, just like that, man. The vision, man, and patience. He's a patient runner. We demonstrated on that last highlight. He's very patient, and he has that vision that Juice made it up, man. Is for you guys is a will and vision put together. That's Blake Corum in a nutshell, man. He was, like you said, he was a workhorse for Michigan, and his ability to decipher through the hole and burst in the open field really stands out. He's a shorter guy, but he's not small by any. He's over 200 pounds, and he's hard to bring down. He got contact balance, very compact running back. Right, I don't know. In the draft, I don't see him as a first round guy. Probably day two. More his speed. He's not the versatility player like a Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson. Those are the running backs that usually go first round. But you can get this guy day two in the draft, and he can help a football team immediately because he just knows how to run the football, man.
Timothy, I don't think he's as put together, quite as put together as Doug Martin, but far more elusive. Doug Martin ran hard. Doug Martin ran really hard.
There's more flash for Corum, I would say.
Yeah, I really like the terminology that you use. Obviously, vision is something that coined quite some time ago. But Drew, you talk about small feet and sticking and moving, and what you saw in that highlight, that's actually from 2021. That isn't even 2022 when the backfield was really his, when he was the alpha in that backfield. Was the vertical cuts. Ellie, you mentioned it. You're making guys miss close quarters. Right? It's not like we're in the open field. You know what I mean? He's making guys miss at the first and second level as well as the open field. And then, he could go hit his head on the goalpost. You know what I'm saying? The vertical cuts that he can stick, put his foot in the ground, make a move, get upfield, and create explosive plays on the ground. I'm not concerned about the fact that he's 5'8". You know what I mean? We're not anticipating
kind of helps
being,
him. 5'8"
No, it does. It does.
It
gives you less to actually hit. You know what I mean? At times you get lost behind those offensive linemen. So, yeah, I initially when Blake Corum came on the scene, he was a scat back, right? He was kind of the lightning to Haskins' thunder. You know what I mean? but he's gotten stronger. He's gotten stronger. He's gotten bigger as far as his frame is concerned. Not tall, but I don't care about that as a running back. You understand what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think Blake Corum can be a huge contributor at the next level. Again, to your point, Hadley, not a first round talent per se. He doesn't have that kind of frame, but certainly, depending on how that injury checks out and how he comes back, how he's used, because of course he was getting 33, 35 carries in some of the games. That I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that, right? Not in terms of his projection to the next level, but certainly a day 2 pick is not out of the question. If he comes back full steam ahead, showing no ill effects of that injury. So yeah, I'm impressed, and I thought he got better. I think he's gotten better over the years, especially when he's had to take on more of the load. So I'm really impressed by Blake Corum. His running mate, Donovan Edwards, we weren't planning on talking a lot about him, but he's a little bit bigger as far as his height. He's 6 foot. He's also kind of put together pretty well, a little over 200 pounds. What do you think about him at the next level?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Headley.
Oh, when I watched him, man, his open field prowess, just the burst. He gets there quickly. He touches his head on the goalpost. I actually think, I don't know. We've seen a lot of Corum, but he might be a better NFL prospect than Blake Corum because, like you say, I think he's put together a little better. Just the speed. I think he's faster than Blake Corum. So, we'll see at the next level. But, that two-headed monster with both Corum and Edwards, Michigan's going to run the ball a lot. That's what they like to do anyways with Harbaugh. So, yeah, Edwards, man, I want to see more of him this upcoming season.
Yeah, like the what he does out of the backfield in the passing game, I think is really impressive as well, and I think that might be what gives him the nod over Corum at the end of the day, right? As far as natural ball carrying instincts, I think Corum's a man in that particular backfield in terms of that duo. But what Donovan Edwards does in the passing game, and I think in terms of the frame to pass protect, not necessarily effectiveness, because that's an area that I'm still studying both of those backs in. Certainly, that's going to be part of the calculus as far as how the NFL teams view those two players. But again, in terms of just ball carrying instincts, like I said, the vertical cuts without losing speed, the vision, the stick and move, as Drew puts it. What I value most in a ball carrier is the ability to make guys miss, and not just in the open field, right? You make guys miss with vision, with lateral quickness, with contact balance. The ability to make a guy miss, to me, is paramount as it pertains to being a ball carrier. Now, again, to get on the field, you're going to have to be able to pass protect at the NFL level. But certainly, in terms of being a ball carrier, I want guys who can make guys miss, especially in close quarters. And Blake Corum, he checks that box. All right. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. We got a couple first and second level defenders that I want to touch on. Chris Jenkins, and I don't believe he's related to Chris Jenkins,
Sure.
the guy that we think of in terms of Chris Jenkins, the former Panther. He's an interesting prospect here. I'm gonna pull him up so you guys can get a sense of who he is. Number 94 for the Michigan Wolverines. When I watched him, I of course you're thinking in terms of, I don't know, Hutchinson a season ago, 2 seasons ago, Jabo, Mozzie Smith, of course. So he didn't get a ton of run 2 years ago, but this past season, of course, he got more playing time. And what impressed me the most about him was his ability to get off the snap. He's always the first person off the snap. Always the first player off the snap in terms of the defensive side of the ball, right? So that obviously gives you an edge. And I think he does a great job of getting his arms extended, coupling the quickness off the snap and getting his arm extended. So whatever plan that the offensive lineman has, he completely obliterates that. So you got to go to plan B. When you're dealing with Chris Jenkins, you got to go to plan B immediately. And I think that gives him an edge. The problem is that he doesn't necessarily have the secondary moves, but I think that can come with more reps, with more development. I actually am very high on his potential. Just watching him a little bit. I've seen a couple of games of his, the Big Ten championship last season in particular. Just kept flashing. You know what I mean? You're not going to see huge counting numbers or anything like that from him thus far, but I think he has a chance to be a really good player, a starter at the next level, and certainly a contributor in a rotation. The other thing that I really liked when I was watching him was the fact that he does a great job of maintaining his balance and keeping his feet. I've seen, of course, when you have those bubbles and those slants and stuff, what are the offensive linemen going to do? They're going to try to cut the defensive linemen, try to get their hands down. And he does a great job of maintaining balance, using his arms again to keep the offensive lineman at bay so that he can find the football. And he does a great job of locating the football as well. Not the greatest of athletes per se, but like I said, I think his ability to get off the snap, the hand usage, not necessarily advanced usage, hand usage, but it's his initial contact that he initiates with the offensive lineman puts him in position to make plays. He's consistently on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. Right? Plays with good pad level for the most part and consistently on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage, whether it's run or pass. Obviously, in pass protection, guys are catching, not necessarily getting out there. But certainly, I was impressed. I was impressed with what I saw, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of Chris Jenkins in 2023.
Yeah, I'm looking here. He is the son of Chris Jenkins.
There you have it.
D tackle. So
there you have
he comes from that
bloodlines.
Is the bloodlines.
Bloodlines.
Also, he came in as a 239-pound end. They have him at 285, but I was hearing that he bulked up to 300 pounds for this upcoming season. So, he's going to be a powerful guy against the run. Mozzie Smith in there, so they're going to need
Mozzie Smith replacement,
plug
isn't
those
it?
holes. Yeah.
Look, let me ask you.
Might have more pass rushing upside, too.
Look, Chris Jenkins, I mean, obviously Mozzie's a monster, right? Mozzie ended up being a late first-round selection. Chris Jenkins, he required some double teams. Now, it wasn't as if he just had one-on-ones out there, and it looked like teams were game planning for Chris Jenkins. From what I saw, and again, a lot of film study to come. We'll see what happens in 2023. But from what I saw, you had to account for him. One guy blocking him, he was going to create disruption in your backfield. He was going to throw the timing off. He was going to make plays. He wasn't necessarily going to allow that guard to climb to the next level. Now, he got washed out, obviously, in certain double teams when he didn't expect it. And I think another area that I think he can actually start to get some of those counting numbers is his timing when they start doing those TE stunts, right? And when they're slanting, whatever the case may be, just having a better feel for it and having some patience when to loop, when to slant, when to crash. I think with a little bit more seasoning, he's going to be a difference maker, man. His dad was a monster. Let's make no mistake about it. His dad was a player, right? And I think his son has a lot of ability here, man. So I'm really looking forward to watching Chris Jenkins this season.
Taco Charlton or Chris Jenkins?
What?
Just throwing it out there, bro.
Taco, like I didn't have anything against Taco, but Taco I'm not gonna sit here and say like Taco was my guy. Taco was somebody else's guy. Wasn't my guy.
I like Taco.
It wasn't my guy. All right, I just thought
two different positions, two different positions, two different types of players. So, it's not an apples to apples comparison. But I like I said, I like what I see from Chris Jenkins. He jumps out even on a defensive line with Mozzie Smith. He jumped out. So really looking forward to whether or not he can actually build on what he did in 2022. And then the last prospect I want to kind of hone in on is Junior Colson. All right, linebacker at the second level. I think he does a good job in terms of the short to intermediate parts of the field as far as pass coverage. Pretty aware from that perspective. I'm not sure exactly how big he is. He's listed around 6'2", 225. So that is very much new age. I don't see the missile though. When you're playing at that weight, I expect you to be flying sideline to sideline. Green dogging downhill. And of course, he didn't always get the opportunity to do so in this defense. It was more of a read and react. But with guys like Chris Jenkins and Mozzie Smith up front, they have a couple other dogs up front. Don't get me wrong. I thought I would see more splash, more negative plays created by Junior Colson. Now, he led the Wolverines in tackles with over 100. I think he was 4th in the Big Ten in 2022. So he's typically around the football. And like I said, he has good awareness in the short to intermediate pass game. You're not going to be able to run those mesh concepts and him get lost in the sauce ball, whizzing by his ear hole or anything like that. He can find the football, but I'd like to see more violence. I want to see more violence and more decisiveness downhill from him, and hopefully he gets the opportunity to demonstrate that. It may have been more of a schematic thing as opposed to him trying to figure it out, but like I said, he typically finds the football. I just like him to get there a bit sooner and with more violence. You know what I mean? So, yeah, those are the guys that I wanted to focus on as far as Michigan is concerned. Is there anybody else that you wanted to touch on outside of JJ McCarthy? I did want to reserve a little time here to talk about JJ McCarthy.
No, I was going with JJ McCarthy, but go ahead.
These guys ain't draft eligible, but them corners for Michigan, boy, Drew. I went back. It is Will Johnson number 2 that I really like for Michigan.
Okay.
That corner, man. I know number 1. You said that was your guy, Mario Walker. You liked him, but
yeah,
Will Johnson's special too, bro. So them corners are good, but they're not draft eligible yet.
Yeah, 2025 out here, man. But oh, go ahead, Juice. I ain't wanna.
No. I'm just showing a list of some of the draft eligible players for 2024 according to NFL Draft Buzz. But you can get into JJ McCarthy.
So real quick, JJ McCarthy. There are teams that I prefer not to watch because of the quarterback play, right? or if that side of the ball is on the field, I'm disinterested, right? And there's 3 teams I can think of in the Big Ten right off the top of my head. Is Iowa offense. Don't want to see it.
That's
Penn
rough.
State offense at times because of the quarterback play, although they got himself a quarterback this year. And then Michigan at times, and it looks like they have a quarterback. And I know JJ McCarthy initially wasn't the starter. They were kind of still trying to figure it out. If you got 2 quarterbacks, you ain't got none, is the saying, right? And they found their guy. I think who was the one who was
McNamara.
Yeah, so he transferred out. I'm not sure where he's at right now, but JJ McCarthy gives them, he gives them some splash. He gives them some dash. He gives them some excitement in terms of watching that offense. So, and this is kind of the missing element that they've been missing to challenge Ohio State since Harbaugh has gotten there, right? I don't know why it took them so damn long to get a quarterback. I figured that's something they would have been able to get done quickly. But, oh, yeah, I forgot about Northwestern. Yeah, he put Northwestern on there too. Absolutely. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like with him. I know he's one of those quarterbacks as well that could be one of the ones that's a huge riser. In terms of, there's a lot of guys that could come out this year in terms of the quarterback position that can make their hay, man. I can name a few just off the top of my head I'm thinking about, and he is one of them. But we'll see what it looks like with Michigan this year, especially if they win the Big Ten.
Yeah, I want to see him continue to push the ball outside the numbers, to continue to make plays in the passing game. I think certainly he gives Michigan another element to their offense that they've been missing for the balance of Jim Harbaugh's tenure. Jim Harbaugh being a quarterback himself, obviously, Andrew Luck. You assume that he's going to be able to get a quarterback in there who can come in and make plays, and it just didn't necessarily get it done until JJ McCarthy kind of, got his opportunity and separated himself from Cade McNamara in particular. So I'd like to see him take that next step. It's a good thing that obviously he has his back in Blake Corum coming back. Of course, they have Donovan Edwards. They have talent. There's no question about the talent in Michigan. Of course, this was a team that made the college football playoff semifinal game. They lost it late. You know what I'm saying? So certainly the pieces are in place. It'll be up to JJ to take that next step and determine whether or not he's going to be quarterback 3 or not, right?
Yeah, some people have him quarterback 3, man. Some people have him up there. He got the tools, man. When I seen him, he's a strong arm guy with athleticism. You just got to fix everything else around him. You know what I'm saying? The decision making, just reading, progressing.
That's like another year, man. That's not like another year. You know what I mean? But you can do it all in 1 year. It can happen. It can happen.
It can happen, man. But
he's a solid athlete with a good arm,
strong arm. Yeah,
trying to learn to play quarterback.
Right.
And like I said, you would think with Harbaugh, his staff, they would develop him. You would think, rise. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't always happen. It doesn't always work out that way. So it's something that we certainly will be zeroed in on to get a sense of whether or not he's ready to take that next leap. And of course, he has some additional eligibility as well. He doesn't necessarily have to declare in 2024. But a strong season could buoy him and ultimately put him in that conversation. So we'll see. We'll see how that ultimately works out. Guys, again, this is our first show coming back from a bit of a hiatus, so we're knocking off a little bit of the rust, but really excited about the 2024 class and delving into it. We're going to be moving back to our once a week format as far as our lives and then the second half draft show. Again, be sure to lock into the channel. Of course, there's going to be other types of content on the channel. We'll be releasing our Patreon next month, so be on the lookout for that. Of course, we'll talk about that in more detail on this show next week. Again, our partners at Underdog Fantasy, of course, best ball. Now is a great time to jump into that. And you want to do the higher or lower type of events, be sure to create an account and use our promo code to double up your deposit up to $100. So be sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. That link is in the description. For Headley, Drew, this is Juice. We will see you guys next week.